Camcorder Cameron here. Today I'm going to be doing a very casual review of the movie Cobweb, so stick around if you want to hear that. Cobweb is a movie that actually came out this year in the summer, but it slipped under my radar until I watched it the other day with my friend. He put it on for me. I knew nothing about it. I just knew that I was in the mood for a scary movie because it's fall now. And honestly, I was like, wow, I enjoyed it so much. I was like, why is nobody talking about this? So the basic premise is it follows the story of Peter, a little 8-year-old boy. He lives in a super old spooky house, totally looks haunted, and he starts to hear this little girl talk to him at night and knock on his wall from the other side. The mystery is, who is this girl that he's talking to and what is going on in Peter's life? So be warned, spoilers will probably be in this discussion because I just want to be able to talk about the movie freely. So I'm telling you now. I really like the setup of this movie because it sort of steers you in the direction of believing that the movie is going to go one way. And then it kind of does go that way, but also surpasses your expectations and has some twists and turns in there. At the beginning of the movie, with him living in a very spooky looking house and hearing a little girl talk through his walls at night, it seems like it's going to be your typical little kid in a haunted house story, which I love. I love haunted house stories. Like, give me all the ghosts. Can't get enough of that. Even if it's cliche, I'm a ghost girl. I'm here for the ghosts. But immediately I was on to her. I was like, uh-oh, because she's like, will you play with me, Peter? And I'm like, she sounds like she's a cute little girl, but I know she's evil because a lot of times in scary ghost movies, the demons, they'll pretend to be cute little kids to reel you in. So that's what I thought was happening here. Wasn't exactly on the money there. So it's a week before Halloween. Another thing that I love that sets up the atmosphere is that I love movies that take place around Halloween, and Peter has this big overgrown pumpkin patch growing in his backyard, so it just adds to the vibe. Peter's not allowed to go trick-or-treating because he's got those kind of parents, but he's kind of like, oh man, why again? Why am I not allowed to go trick-or-treating? Because all the other kids get to go trick-or-treating. And the dad tells him this story.
You know the old house down the end of the lane a few years ago? The little girl that lived there, she vanished on Halloween.
So because of that reason, they don't feel comfortable letting Peter go out on Halloween. That sounds understandable. If a kid was kidnapped or went missing in your neighborhood, yeah, I wouldn't let my kid go roam around, but also I would just go with my kid. If you're supervising the kid, they're probably not going to just get kidnapped and disappear. So it seems like a poor excuse anyways. Another cliche that this movie starts off with is the little kid getting bullied trope. We see pretty early on that he gets bullied at school, and so that kind of plays into his characterization of being like a shy, introverted kid who doesn't share much. He comes home from school and seemingly he has a normal home environment. His mom seems really supportive and his dad seems really supportive, and I was already confused. I was like, hold on, I don't understand why this boy doesn't feel comfortable telling his parents that he's getting bullied, because they're asking him questions about his school day and he's evading all the questions, not being open with his parents and not really sharing much with them. He's getting physically bullied by this kid. He doesn't even go to recess. He will stay in the classroom during recess because he's so terrified of what his bully will do to him. As the movie progresses, and this is what I really like about it, is you start to realize, oh, there's a reason that he's not telling his parents that he's getting bullied at school. And that's because he doesn't feel safe telling his parents that information.
It's okay. It was just a bad dream.
Once Peter is starting to hear the voice of this little girl at night, he's having like night terrors and he's waking up screaming. And so his parents will come in to check on him whenever they hear him screaming and totally just not make him feel better about the nightmare at all. They pretty much like gaslight him. They tell him he has an overactive imagination and that everything isn't real. It's just a dream. But I'm sure a lot of parents do that. You know, my parents did that too when I had nightmares. They would tell me it wasn't real and it was all in my imagination. Still, that doesn't mean that I was any less scared whenever they tucked me back in bed and went into their separate bedroom. I would still be scared of whatever I was afraid of. And in this case, there really was scary noises and there really was a girl talking to him through the walls. You, as a viewer, start to really sympathize with Peter because it brings up, for me at least, it brought up those memories of me being a terrified child. And I think also just the camera work does a really great job of capturing his childlike perspective and the way he sees things, like when he's creeping around his house at night. So you really start to sympathize with Peter because we've all been there, a kid scared in the night. Kids get nightmares. It's just a developmental thing. Peter actually had a real reason to be afraid. And his parents, didn't believe him at first. They think, oh, it's probably just like a little mouse in your room that you're hearing. It's not some little ghost girl. And so the next day, he and his dad have this bonding moment where they put out rat poisoning together. And he's like, see, Peter, there's nothing to be afraid of. And that's another shared experience that I had with Peter when I was a little kid. I had a little mouse living in my room at one point, and I was terrified and I was having nightmares, and I would go get my mom and wake her up in the night and tell her I was hearing all these noises, and they figured out it was a mouse. So that really is like a logical thing that is common and can happen, and been there. I loved that moment because it's so real, but as a viewer, we know it's not actually a mouse. There is a spirit or something communicating to Peter through the walls at night. And even though this girl is super cute and she seems innocent, it's clear that there's more going on there, and she is not. She's the villain, pretty much. She's the scary thing in this movie.
Hello?
All the while, he has this new substitute teacher at school, so she doesn't know. Obviously, she's getting to know all the students, and she's noticing Peter's odd behavior. He doesn't act like the rest of his classmates, and so she gives him some extra care and attention. Cliche trope number 3 or 4 or 5, he draws scary pictures, which I love that. I love when kids in horror movies draw a scary picture. You kind of have to expect it to happen. I love it though. And he draws like himself in bed at night and the words "help me." So I love that the teacher takes this drawing very seriously. She's concerned. She goes to Peter's house just to have a conversation with his family and basically just be like, hey, I want you to know that Peter drew this. She really was coming from a place of concern. Whenever Peter's mom answers the door, it really goes south. Like, Peter's mom is very defensive. She's very offended.
You see, Peter has an overactive imagination.
That is the first time that I personally noticed that, whoa, his mom kind of is off. Like, that was whenever the red flags were starting to show for me. Before that, they did seem like your basic, playing it straight horror movie parents that care about their kid, but also he's a kid with an imagination. We're not going to believe everything he says. The teacher is obviously very upset. She did not expect it to go that way, and she can't just stop caring about Peter. And I love that. And I'll talk about her more later on. Instead of seeing this concerning drawing that her son drew and wanting to have a conversation with him about why he drew it, she instead is very angry with Peter because it feels like he just got her in trouble, I guess. And so she is not nice to Peter about it. And this is whenever a big theme in the movie becomes clear, and it just gets worse and worse and worse from here, where it's like, okay, Peter's being haunted, but he doesn't feel safe in his home, and it's not just because he's being haunted. It's because his parents are creating an environment where he doesn't feel safe telling his parents about his bullying. He doesn't feel safe telling his parents that he's not sleeping through the night, because what are they going to do? They blame him for everything. No wonder he's getting bullied at school, because he's getting bullied at home. It's like the same, dynamic that he's used to. So all this is going on in Peter's, life with parents in school. He's got a hard time, and this little girl in his wall is befriending him because she is like the one person he has to talk to, the one person he can confide in, and she actually does seem to care. She wants him to be okay, and she doesn't like that other people are treating him bad, and she starts to tell him to stick up for himself, kind of being like the little devil on his shoulder, encouraging him to hurt others. Because after a bad day at school where his bully smashed up this pumpkin Peter worked really hard to make, the little girl tells Peter, you got to get him back the next day. So next day at school, his bully comes in with a brand new pumpkin to say, I'm sorry. And it seems like he was forced to do that because it looked like his mom was walking him into the classroom with his pumpkin. And so it was a big gesture. He probably wouldn't have done it if his mom and teacher didn't make him. Anyways, he did say, I'm sorry. Did that matter to Peter? No, because after school, he goes up and he pushes his bully, but he doesn't just push him. He pushes him down a flight of steps, and that bully breaks his leg. Yeah. So that's obviously bad. And so his parents obviously know about this situation. And when he gets home, what do you think happens? Yeah, he gets punished. His parents are mad at him again. And this time, the punishment is worse.
You're grounded.
Okay, Peter, go to your room.
No, Carol, he's grounded. He's going in the basement.
So, as punishment for Peter pushing his bully down the steps, he gets sent to the basement. The basement door is hidden in the kitchen behind the refrigerator. So his dad literally moves the refrigerator aside, opens this door. There's long steps. It's pitch black, no lights. He makes Peter go down there in the dark. They lock him up there. And the movie does not make it clear how long Peter is down in this basement for. The teacher at school gets concerned because she hasn't seen or heard from Peter in a few days. She shows up to check on him at his house and drop off some classwork that he missed. And again, she speaks to Peter's mother. The mother informs her that, oh, Peter's actually not going to school anymore. He's going to a different school. The teacher's like, oh, yeah, where's he going to school now? She's like, I'm homeschooling him. She feels alarm bells in her head go off when she hears that Peter's mom is now homeschooling him. And she's like, are you sure about that? Which is kind of like whenever the substitute teacher was pushing back to the mother's face, I was like gagged a little bit. I was like, dang girl, you are brave, because she's like, is that really best for Peter? Like, I think that he needs to be around other kids his age and it's good for him to be out. And the mom again is very offended because she's like, I know what's best for my son. The dad, he hears all this going on and he comes out and he's like, oh, hey. And he plays good cop around the teacher. He's like, oh, you're Peter's teacher? Come on in. Yeah, come on. He invites her in. Ooh, she's on alert because where's Peter? Peter is nowhere to be found. She's like, where's Peter? I want to see him. The dad informs her, oh, Peter's taking a nap. She's like, can you wake him up? Like, I need to talk to him. And they're like, no, he's really tired. He's taking a nap, but we can sit here and chat. And so she's talking with the parents about why she came today and how she feels about Peter. And Peter is down in the basement still. Again, we don't know how long he's been down here for. Seems like the movie's making it seem like he's been down here for days. I don't exactly know, but he's been down here in the dark in a basement by himself. He hears the commotion upstairs and he's like, this is my chance to ask for help. So he starts banging on the kitchen door, calling for his teacher, calling for help. And she's hearing all this and you see all over her face that her heart is like sinking and her chest is pounding, and she's like, what's that noise? The dad's like, oh, it's the dryer. And then the dryer starts. So she knows it's not the dryer. And at that point, I'm like, girl, I'm yelling at the TV because at this point I'm really scared. I did not expect them to put Peter in the basement. I knew there was something off about his parents, but I did not expect this form of child abuse. They have him locked in the basement. I was screaming at her to get out of there because at this point I'm like, she's a witness to their crimes. They're going to kill her. And they do make it seem like the dad is about to kill her because the dad the whole time is like holding on to a hammer and he's like kind of creeping up behind her while she's looking around. And I'm just like, go girl, go, go, go. And she's taking her sweet time leaving, even though she's scared. She's like, I'm gonna be back. And she's hearing the pounding. And I'm just like, girl, go. She gets out. She gets in her car. She's still not going. I'm like, girl, go. The dad, of course, pops up in her window with a hammer, but she drives off. Anyways, I'm assuming that she's driving off to go call like CPS, Child Protective Services. That's what I would do, you know? But I think that they are trying to make a commentary on, you know, the school system and how they don't have enough resources in place to check on kids in their home environment, because we do have a scene where the substitute teacher talks to who I'm assuming is the principal of the school and expresses her concern over Peter's safety. And the principal is like, you really just shouldn't be getting involved. Like, it's none of our business. There's so many students that we see that are like Peter that we just can't help. And she's kind of crushed after that. I still think that she has the rights to call CPS. I mean, I truly don't know anything about Child Protective Services, but I feel like she had more than enough evidence to at least like make a report or whatever. But it doesn't seem like she ever does that, which is a big plot hole for me, because after this whole scene where she leaves the house, the movie kind of forgets about her until the very end. She comes at the end, but from this point on, she just kind of disappears into thin air, which is annoying to me. Anyways, it's now clear in the movie who the real villain is. This is a story about child abuse. I love that this movie, it goes through and it shows kind of like the cycle of abuse. Like after they've abused this child, neglected him, left him in the basement, the mother, she feels remorseful. So she bakes him a bunch of cupcakes. She comes down with candles and she's like, Peter, I'm so sorry, baby, you can come back up. And they're just acting like nothing ever happened. They're giving him love and affection. They're giving him a warm bath and massaging him. But for him, he knows better. He now knows that he can't comfortably accept this love because he doesn't know when he's going to get love from them or when he's going to get abuse from them. So it's really disheartening to see Peter after this, because he's just like not a child anymore. He's just like a shell of who he is, and he is living in constant fear of the people who are supposed to be his caregivers. And they are being straight up crazy at this point. They're like, you're never going to have another nightmare again, right? Or else I'm going to do something else to you, okay, Peter? You know, they're just being like straight up threatening, but they're still acting very sweet. I think that Lizzie Kaplan does a really great job of playing this smiley, loving mother who is just so terrifying. Just in that performance of pretending to be a caring mother, like she just so effectively creates a really terrifying villain. So it's really great to see her in this role. I mean, in the beginning, I totally bought into it. I was like, oh yeah, she just seems like, you know, regular mom. But it becomes clear that that is not the case.
No more nightmares. No more.
That's right.
Anyways, so now the parents are the full-blown villains. He's still hearing the voices of his girl in the wall at night, but she's feeding him stories about how he can't trust his parents. And at this point, we're like, oh yeah, he can't trust his parents. They're not safe. And she's like, they're my mom and dad. I'm your sister, Peter. And he's like, what? Plot twist. He's like, no way. She's like, don't believe me, Peter? Go dig up this spot. So he does. He goes out to his backyard pumpkin patch and he discovers bones. And it is like a scene where my heart is in my throat, because his mom sees him digging around out there and she's like, Peter, what are you doing? And she has to go from his bedroom, which I'm pretty sure is in the attic of their creepy house. So she's coming all the way down from the attic out the door. By that time, he's frantically covered up everything and acted like he was just picking a pumpkin. But I don't know. It's kind of like iffy on if she believes him, because that is exactly where the body is buried.
It was Halloween. Before they locked me in the wall, a trick-or-treater came to the door, and she saw me. I asked her for help. They killed her, Peter.
Okay, so now let's get into the climax of the movie, because things pick up and they keep rolling from here on out. So they have a big dinner as a family. It's Halloween. He's obviously not allowed outside to go trick-or-treating, so they're all together. They've got a lot of tension. The mother hates Halloween. Every kid that's ringing the doorbell for trick-or-treat is like, driving up her rage. It's making her more and more angry. And he is just very quiet at the table, being a quiet mouse, being very compliant, not eating his supper, but, being present. Being a kid, the father realizes that Peter got into the rat poisoning and poisoned their food, which I realized just before it happened, because he's like, oh, the porridge tastes different. And I was like, why would the porridge taste different? Oh, the poisoning, it's like Chekhov's gun. Like, you don't just introduce a weapon or a poison and not have it come into play later on in the movie. So he poisons his parents and they die a very graphic, sickly death immediately. And the little girl on the wall is like, yes, Peter, you did it. Now just let me out of the walls. And I am terrified at this point. And her voice starts to change more, and there's excitement, and you could tell that it's really ready to get out from in between the walls. And what is so creepy about this, for me at least, was the ambiguity. You're not exactly sure at this point if it's like the movie Barbarian, where there has been his sister locked up in the walls of his house, and it's just gonna be this Barbarian, inhuman, neglected little girl, because she's only ever been abused and held in the walls. And I didn't know if they were gonna go that route and have it be like the old lady from Barbarian, or I didn't know if it really was a demon. I didn't know if it was the spirit of his sister who was haunting the house and needed to be released. I didn't know what was going on at this point. So, of course, he lets her out, because we have to find out. At this point, the movie kind of falls apart for me a little bit. It doesn't hang on to that gripping fear that I had prior to him opening the door, because after he opens the door, there's another subplot where his bully's older brother and his gang of teenagers are coming to Peter's house to play a Halloween prank on him, or I don't know if their plan was to break into his house and beat him up or what, because they break into Peter's house, they're smashing up his house, they're looking for Peter, and I really feel like the movie just kind of threw in this plot line at the very end just to give us some kills, because we need to see the monster kill, because the mom and the dad were killed by Peter technically, and we see one by one this creature snatch up all these teenagers, and immediately as soon as the creature has the fleshly body in its grasp, it's spitting out blood and guts. So it's kind of like a human paper shredder. The creature, we can't exactly see it still. It's in the shadows. It's got this long hair, which I'm assuming is why it's got its name, Cobweb, because it's got this long black hair that wraps around as it's walking around, but we never really get a good glimpse of the creature. It comes after Peter after everybody else has been murdered, and another similarity to Barbarian, it kidnaps him and puts him in this dungeon that's in their basement. It kind of mirrors that scene of Barbarian where the old lady, kidnaps people just to have them be her baby doll and take care of them. It's kind of like that, where it's okay, if she wanted to kill Peter, she already would have, because that's what she does with everybody else. But for some reason, she's put Peter in this pit, and we don't really know why, what she wants with Peter. It doesn't seem to me like she wanted to kill him. The sister is now having her monologue about why she's evil, and it's basically because she was born looking different, and because of that, her parents mistreated her. They hid her away. They treated her terribly. And then after she was born and treated like that, Peter was born. And because he didn't look as freaky as her, Peter got all the love and all the attention, and he was raised without even knowing he had a sister. And at that point, it is like revealed what the creature looks like. And it kind of like destroys, I don't know, this is a fine line that horror movies have to walk a lot, where either horror movies, they don't want to show the creature in full light because it'll kind of like ruin the creepiness of it. But whenever you do show a creature in full light, that can also ruin the creepiness of it. And that was the case for Cobweb. Like, I do think that this creature was much more scary whenever I could barely tell what it looked like when I was just seeing the gangly claws and the long hair. She just looks cheaply made. Like, she looks like a lizard person, like a villain in a Marvel movie, you know? But she doesn't look scary once we actually get to see her. So it kind of takes away the scariness. And at that point, the teacher comes back. She was like using a fire poke as a weapon, which is like a cliche in all the horror movies. A lot of the times a woman will be using a fire poke to defend herself. I think that they probably just did that as like a subtle nod to other horror movies of the past. It was fine for a minute, but whenever she just like kept going around the house with this fire poke, like she left and came back with the fire poke, I was like, girl, why do you still have that thing? Find something else to defend yourself. So yeah, it didn't seem like she could possibly survive that situation. And against all odds, you know, she comes and saves Peter's life. But we get a creepy ending because he's able to lock his sister up in that dungeon and get out with the help of his teacher. In the end, the sister gives this scary monologue about how I may be trapped, but I'm gonna haunt you for the rest of your life. Every time you're asleep and you hear something scary in the night, you're gonna think of me. And you're never gonna be able to live the rest of your life without thinking of me and being terrified. And I love that. I was like, so true. And it kind of just brings it full circle.
It's a little on the nose, though, don't you think?
It is on the nose. The person who wrote this movie wrote the Netflix remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is famously terrible. I'm not giving them praise because it is on the nose. Like, I think that they wanted to write a horror movie about child abuse and not have it be specifically about child abuse. Have this monster kind of metaphorically symbolize child abuse. And I think they did a really good job delivering a movie that's about that. I think it is on the nose, but that doesn't bother me. Horror movies can be on the nose, you know? I loved the ending, even though I didn't like the ending. It stuck with the metaphor because if we're thinking about child abuse, you know, it's showing us the cycle of abuse. The real evil is coming from inside his house. It's his parents. And a lot of times, children who have been through trauma, scientifically, it's been proven that if a kid just has one adult in their life looking out for them, that they'll be okay. So I love that the teacher character kind of symbolized that, especially with her being the one to come in and save him in the end. It's like, yeah, you really just need one adult in your corner looking out for you to change the trajectory of your life. But again, with the ending evil monologue, I also think that did a good job tying into his childhood trauma because that isn't something that ever goes away. Peter's never going to be able to forget any of those things. And he's probably going to be terrified by them forever. And I liked that ending because a lot of times when horror movies don't want to have like a resolution ending, they'll kill off all the characters. But I loved that Peter and the teacher survived, but we still didn't have a resolution ending because he's still going to be living in fear for the rest of his life. You know, out of all the bad movies that are released these days, like this movie really surpassed my expectations. I mean, to be fair, I didn't have any expectations because I didn't know what to expect. But when I watch a horror movie, I want something that's gonna scare me. And I think this movie did a really effective job of scaring me. It kind of reminded me in a lot of ways of Coraline because there's like that big theme of the parents not being trustworthy. It also reminded me a lot of Barbarian, and that is because this movie had the same producer as Barbarian, so that's probably why. There's a lot of similarities between this movie and Barbarian. I didn't talk about all of them because this isn't a Barbarian review, but I do think that this movie was much more effective than Barbarian, in my opinion. I love seeing Janice from Mean Girls be in another movie because she has range. She can play subtle, creepy, and then she also, once the mask is taken off and we see her for who she really is, she is like in your face, screaming, scary, and I love it. I love seeing her in a movie like this because I'm so familiar with her work as Janice in Mean Girls, which is a totally different character than this. So this was great. I'd love to see her. I mean, even if you're watching my review, like, I still think that you should go watch it if you just want like a good seasonal spooky movie to watch with your friends or even alone. If it's raining or if you're getting a fall day and you want to get in the mood, this is great. It's recent, it's hot, it's new. Check it out. Alrighty guys, thank you for watching another video. So if you like this video, let me know. Did you watch Cobweb? I would love to hear your thoughts if you have seen this movie. Let me know if there's any scary movies that you guys want me to talk about because I love scary movies. They're my favorite genre. And I love getting recommendations of scary movies that I haven't seen before. And I would love to do more videos for you guys about scary movies. So just let me know what you want to see and I'll make it. I'm going to take a moment to thank my Patreon supporters. I really love talking to you guys over on Patreon. So if you aren't already a member, please consider becoming one. It starts as low as $3. It helps me out a lot. I don't talk about it a lot, but you guys, I have a part-time job, so it can be a lot to balance working and making these videos. So getting income from there is a huge help, and I love making these videos so much. I would love to be able to make even more. So check me out over there, and thank you to those who already support me because you go, girl. You're the reason why I'm doing this. You guys can't express enough how much it truly means and helps me out. So thank you so much. Okay, it's October. I'm feeling the pressure. I'm feeling the spooky movie pressure. I'm going to have some other videos coming for you guys this October, talking about more horror movies. And you guys, I'm working on editing Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Just keep an eye out for those videos. They'll be coming to you. I'm working away on them. So again, thank you guys for watching. Until next time, Camcorder Cameron signing out.